Hi, it's Lil from Made by Marley. Today we're going to be turning an IKEA piece into a beautiful piece of cottagecore, so follow along. This is how the piece started. So, how do you make IKEA look less like IKEA? Well, one of the telltale signs of IKEA is they generally have, they always have stickers. So there's stickers on the back that say IKEA. You want to get rid of all that evidence. You want to take these off. Your hardware is a telling sign that it's a cheaper piece of furniture. So in a minute I'm going to take these off, and what I'm going to do, since it is quite slick, although I am painting it with chalk paint, I've got a 180 grit here, and I'm just going to scuff sand. And if you don't know what scuff sanding is, it's very easy. You're just taking the sort of kind of roughing up the top layer of varnish just enough that it gives it a little bit more tooth, and it generally kind of looks like that once you've done a scuff sand. So that's what scuff sanding is. So if anybody says scuff sand it, that's all it is. It's nothing complicated. I'm going to take off these hardware, and my plan for today is a little bit loosey-goosey because I want to try and interject some yellows, some browns, maybe a touch of grey, and I'm going to do it all by blending. So we're going to be blending today. The piece has been scuff sanded, it's been dusted off, and we're kind of ready to go, but these holes here, I've decided I'm going to cover them with this IOD mould. So if you've never used IOD moulds before, and I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you get a little bit of corn flour, which I think in other countries is maybe called cornstarch. Don't overload it because you'll leave too much of your detail, but it's just enough to make sure that your clay doesn't stick. And you're looking for artist clay, and you're just pushing it in. I'm trying to do this in a pallet, so it's not the easiest of surfaces, but we will get the job done. Make sure you get right up into these corners here. I quite often use a transfer stick. If you've seen me do this before, I get it to the point of this clay is quite hard. The rest of it seemed quite soft, but the part that I picked out seemed quite hard. Now it's got the micro rim, these moulds, which means that it makes a nice clean mould. You can get it nice and clean. Make sure you're packing it in nice and tight, and try and get rid of the excess as you go. So something kind of like that. You want it nice and flat on this edge because this is the edge that you're going to glue to your piece. So you just let gravity kind of pull it out for you. Don't be kind of pulling and tugging at it, you'll break it. I'll try the other side. I always find with this one that the top edge always breaks off. See, look, there we go. I'm not worried about that. I'll glue that back on in a minute. Actually, maybe I might not actually need it. So I'm just gonna use, I'm going back down here. I'm just gonna use just strong wood glue, or I use this kind of glue. I've spoken about it before. Get it from the pound shop. It is really good glue, and it glues onto furniture really well. Now when you're gluing down your moulds, make sure you get every tiny little bit of surface, because that's what's going to give it a strong bond. And I recommend, although I have shown other videos where I have done this and been a bit cheeky, but I recommend if you're putting moulds on, that you do it while your surface is like this. Once it's painted, it just makes it even more vulnerable for not coming off, but if you're putting it onto this kind of surface, it's probably best to do it this way. And I'm just going to kind of get rid of my excess, and just kind of, you don't want to be too rough with them because they've not got any crust or anything on them. And I'm just going to go back and I'm going to get the two little parts that were left in the mould. It doesn't matter, every time I do this one, the same thing happens. So it just shows you, hams to everyone. Get rid of that excess part glue there. We are going to be doing a very textured paint job on this. So now where's my other little part stuck in the mould here? Just grab it. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to glue one on the other side. Now when we're painting, we are going to have to be mindful that these are live. We're going to have to kind of be gentle with them. Oh, that didn't help us. Because they're still very, very soft, and you can paint them, but you just have to be really gentle or you'll lose all your detail. kind of straighten that up. I'm just going to use my nail to. So I'll just go ahead and do the other side. So my apologies about how this paint looks. I save every piece of paint that I ever mix or use. I put lids on the containers and I put them away and I store them. These are two previous colours that I've mixed before. It's that sort of buffy beige. Yes, I did say beige. I am going to be using them beige. And a yellowy colour. I've also, these are both chalk paints. I've got some olive from Annie Sloan, nice and thick. I've got some hornflower from Annie Sloan, so they're all chalk paints. But I'm also going to be doing something quite daring, and I'm going to be mixing through some Transvaal Grey from Jubilee, some Bunting Yellow, and possibly some Tawny Orange into this to make it. Now I'm going to give you a rough idea where this is going, and if you have a sort of cabinet like this, and you want to put something behind it, wallpaper is a great way to do it. I'm going to show you how to do this. Now I have this wallpaper. This is how it looks. Isn't that lovely? Really sort of summery. Reminds me of, I was away recently and all the sort of hedgerows that I saw. It's just sort of stunning. So I think we're going to do something like this, possibly in the back. Now I could change my mind. And on the glassware, I'm going to put some of the Franz Botanicals. Now this is a retired stamp, so I don't know, it depends whether you can get your mitts on it or not. In the UK you can still get it, and it's got some yellows, and I'll pick out the sort of lighter greeny leaves. But that's for the fun part. We have to get to this part first. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm not so much a blend, but it's a sort of stipply blend. So I'm wanting darker around here. So let's just kind of start by not going crazy, but just maybe doing some grey around brown. That would be the right colour to tell you. I'm just going to give this a bit of a stir. It's been sitting in the heat. It's got a bit. So I'm going to put some brown here, and some brown here. Now, I'm not too worried at the end of the day whether my paints here get contaminated. They're all just about on their sort of last days. I'm not worried about the glass. I'll get a Stanley knife and we'll get that. So I'm just mixing this, and this is going to need 2 coats. 2 coats of paint, this what we're doing today. But we're just going to be patient, and we're dipping into, this is me into the sort of beigey colour here. Now I still am not happy over here. I want it much darker. I'm going right along that edge. So let's dip back in our brown and get some more of this going here. Now I want a brighter yellow, really, to be honest with you. So this is going to kind of dark down here. And this is where you get a fun afternoon, and this is why I'm sitting outside, just playing with your paint, blending away, deciding what you want to do, and making it happen. Now I'm going in with a really bright yellow here, and I'm going to kind of mix that through here. And literally, this is all I'm actually going to do. I'm going to go through, this is me and the olive now. I'm bringing some olive into it, and I'm going to mix that up into this yellow colour here. And we're just going to have fun. We're just going to make colours that all kind of blend nice. They're kind of all colours that work quite well. I mean, we know we're going to have to go back over it for a second coat, so we're quite happy with that. So I quite like this down here. I think I could maybe, with a little bit more dip in the olive here. Gosh, when I actually touch the paint, that might be good. Yeah, some of that here. And bring some up round this door here. I'm going to dip right into the Gild Lane yellow and kind of mix that through the olivey colour. Now that's looking slightly radioactive, but so all we need to do is go back into our green and then go back into our buff, and we can tone all that down. I'm going to bring some of that over here because I quite like it, adding some more of the lemon. So you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of like, I'm just playing around. I'm thinking hedgerows. I'm thinking the sort of beachy kind of hedgerows. I've took some photos when I was away because I was near beaches in Scotland, and there's an awful lot of yellow tones that you see by the side of the roads in forms of like daisies, and some of the kind of the ferns and things are bordering green. So I'm still quite enjoying that. I might kind of keep that there being quite bright like that. So you can see where I'm doing it. I'm kind of, when we go back over it for our second time, we can kind of like sort of kind of try and recreate this over the top of it just to give it its two coats. But this is all I'm doing. This is where you get to have all the fun that you want to have. Just get your colours out. Now, how many colours have I got here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've not used the Transfile grey yet, but if I want to introduce it to work with this wallpaper, if we go with that, then I'm going to have to start putting some grey in it somewhere. But right now I'm quite happy. I'm going back in the green and I'm mixing that through the beige. I want to have a more yellowy bit here, down here, so I'm mixing it into the brown that I've already applied down at this corner. And we can age this, we can really put loads of texture in it. This is a great way to blend lots of different colours together so that you get a lot of nice texture. So instead of the swirly in the middle, around the edges, swirl, 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 this is a way that gives it kind of more of a sort of organic, more mossy, sort of stunning look. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to do the front, and I'm going to show, do you know what I'm going to do actually? I'm going to go on and I'm going to do the whole thing. And then I'll do a walk round, and then I'll show you me going back over the top of it for the second time. Now, I understand I did the majority of this blending off camera, but I think blending is a very personal thing, and it really is just about this type of blending. It's just about mashing your colours together. I don't want them to completely blend. I want the transitions, and I want that sort of mashing look, and you really need to kind of go away and just kind of play with it yourself until you get something that you're happy with, so you can move on to the next step. But I showed you the colours I was working with, and this had really good coverage. Now what I'm going to do now is all the bits that need another cover, because think about it, I mean, you need 2 coats, but you're going over it, and so it's getting very, I'll show you close-ups at the end, it's getting really quite texturized. But so say it's pretty much all covered, but what I would do is I want to, because I'm putting the wallpaper on the inside and the ferns on the outside, there's a difference between the green and the ferns and the green and the backdrop that's going to be on the backdrop. What I did off camera a couple of minutes ago was I just painted in the sides grey, because the wallpaper's going on the back. And so what I'm going to try and do now is, because I've given this kind of pretty much 2 blends, it's just mashing it together. It's not complicated, and if you feel I haven't touched on it enough, or you want to see me do more, even on just some boards, so you can get a feel for it, then I'm happy to do so. That's not a problem. But it's just mashing it all together with all the colours that you want, and I've kind of picked some of the colours from the wallpaper that's going to be the background. But as I said, I need to try and make the ferns and the wallpaper now work. So I have a green. Oh, I'm not quite sure what to do. And with this now, what I'm going to do is the thing I like doing best, which now this is this colour of green. Now that's a little bit too, it's a little bit too greeny green. So let's just get something. I'll just get a lid, and let's just make a green that's more to my liking. So I'm going to add quite a few scoops of this green, like that, and then I think I'll probably add a little bit of this orangey colour I have here. Stick some of that on it. Let's see how this works for us. Do you see what's happened there? It's just kind of toned it down a little bit, but I still think I need a little bit more of this orange. So I'm just going to do this. I don't want to put that back in my paint. Yeah, this is definitely more sort of ferny. This is more what the sort of colour I'm looking for. In fact, I think I'm going to be quite bold and just do a little tad more of that. There we go. Try not to make too much mess. Mix that through, and what I'll do is, just for good measure, now this is hugely texturised. I don't want to pull out all the lumps at the bottom of this chalk paint, but I'm just going to add a little bit of chalk paint to this as well, because this is all self-leveling. There, now that's as That's as good as I want it. I mean, it could be, yeah, I think I might just, I'm now going to brighten it up. That's terrible. I've made this, now I'm brightening it. So I'm just going to dip a tiny little bit of this yellow in it just to give it a, yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. That's more what I'm looking for. Now, so we've got our blend on, but we're wanting to try and add some interest, and you've got to remember we're working with the grey and the florals inside with the yellows. We're going to put some yellow, more brighter yellows on this in a minute, but we're going to do the old, give it some texture. So I'm just going to get my palette knife, and you know that there's plenty. I've got some of that original green dripping down, I don't want that. Because I've got nice texture where my dry brushing and blending it all, meshing it all together is, it's going to sit on this quite nice. So just, you know, where you think, you know, it's hard to imagine. I mean, maybe we should have done this after we've put our ferns on, but, you know, fortune favours the bold. So I'm just going to do some of this round this edges here, just like it's kind of scraped into there. That's the good thing. This is why I like palette knives. They do completely different things to a paintbrush, and they give you definite texture. I don't mind if that kind of looks like it's dripping down there. That's quite nice. So this is what we're going to do, but the next thing we're going to do is we are going to put a little bit more. Now it's a cross between, the wallpaper's a cross between this and this. It's not this buttercup yellow, and it's not this bright yellow either, so we're going to have to try and get a mix of the two going. And I'll probably just, because I'm like this, I'll probably just use my palette knife again. So my paint's got quite thick sitting in the sun, so I'm just going to go straight in with some of this, and let's see what kind of yellow we can get from this. Still quite bright, and I'm not wanting as bright as this, but we'll put a little bit more of this yellow in. And this is all about just mixing colours till you're happy with them, until you get something that you think works with. I mean, you can pick any colour wallpaper at the back. You don't have to put transfers on the front. You can stamp it. You can do whatever you want. This was just a way that I really liked that wallpaper. Thought it was really summery. So I think I'm kind of on the money there. I'm going to push some of that over towards that green right now while I mix this. I mean, you can mix it with a brush if you prefer, but I'm just doing it this way. Some of that green's got in there as well, so that's quite nice. So I'm just going to focus on this part down here just now, just so we're kind of adding, we're not adding as much yellow as we added. And also, I always think it looks quite nice if we go over what we've already done. If you just kind of touch some of it over where you've already been. I'm just going to do this because I don't want that bluey green to infiltrate my paint. So some of that down here. And I'm just going to I'm moving too quick for Martin. He has enough job. He doesn't know where I'm going to go next, so sometimes he's a bit kind of like, there's a bit of a lag. The lag is my fault, it's not Martin's. Right, so just a little bit of this yellow up here like that. And obviously you can see the greens coming off in that part there, so we'll just work with that. This is all I'm doing. This is it. I mean, that's all I'm doing on these edges. I think probably I don't want to kind of go crazy with it, so I think maybe I might have to at some point introduce some more of the grey, because it is quite, you've seen inside, that's the sort of light grey we're dealing with. It's going to be quite light when this opens up, and we still have to think about what sort of colours, and I'll come back to you on that, on what colours I think is going to work well with shelves. Now, off camera just before, because I've got no patience, I wanted to see what this was going to look like, brushed over with the grey, but I'm not exactly loving it. So let's see if we can try and mix. If you get your palette knife, it's the same with paintbrushes. You can do it really well with paintbrushes, but if you get your palette knife and you situate it in both colours, so you can see I've got yellow and you can see I've got the green there, you can probably get a good sort of, maybe get a good kind of mix of both going. Nah, not liking that either. I think what I'm probably going to do with the handles is just kind of go back over them again with this wet brush and just kind of meter that down. It doesn't need to look like it's been dripped. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go with that. Yeah, just going to spread that out a little bit there. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to finish up the top, do a little bit of this on the sides, not too much, not too crazy. That's probably just enough. I don't want to play with it too much. That's probably all I'm going to do with this just now. And then we'll get on to lying the cupboard flat and measuring out the wallpaper for the back. Our humble little IKEA cabinet is looking less IKEA-ish. We're now back in the studio. It's a new day. This has all been dried for 24 hours, our moulds, everything. Now what I did yesterday was I painted the shelves yellow and I added a little bit of cornflower to give them that sort of mottled look. So I did that off camera. Now, things to talk about today. There's only one way that I think that if you're painting glass this is the best way. I have tried many things, taping meticulously for ages in every little join and pulling it off and me never being satisfied by how it looks. I've saw people playing cards and all sorts of things. It doesn't work. The best way is to just fire on, do your painting. It's the quickest way, but I'm not doing it because it's the quickest. It's the best way to do it. So when you end up with paint on your glass, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a razor blade and you're going to need a clean cloth. Now I'm just going to give you a close-up on how I clean it. So don't go down the way like this because you're going to scrape in where you've painted. Always work towards where you've painted, and it will not scratch your glass. Don't buy into these people who say, oh, you need to tape it off, it's going to scratch your glass. It has never ever, in all the time I've been doing furniture, scratched my glass, never once. You always go into your paintwork like that. That way this little part here is still painted and it's not been scratched. You just go up your piece, scraping it like this until you've cleaned it off. Now last night, I quickly just painted the inside of the doors brown. So I might have to, do it on both sides. But that's all you do. You do this all the way up and it's really easy and it's actually quite satisfying cleaning glass. And once you've got it like that, you can scrape that part. You need a microfiber cloth. Microfiber cloths, I mean, this one's been used and I've obviously used it for paint as well, but it's clean. And when you've got it all cleaned off, you start cleaning your glass. You can put glass cleaner on this. Don't be spraying and letting it all run in, because remember, this is chalk paint, it'll reactivate. Just do a couple of squishes in the middle and start working it out and cleaning your glass that way. But that is the way that I clean glass. And I think those parts there in the middle and the inside of the glass, but you can see that is a lovely clean edge, no issues at all, no taping, no playing cards, no other nonsense, just this is how I clean glass. So a little bit, just a wee bit more talking. In a minute I'm just going to show you how I'm not dry fitting it even, I'm just sticking it in with some masking tape to see how it looks, because I still have that little bit of push and pull between this style and the transfer. So I want to see what this looks like with this stuck in the back to make sure that this is going to work. And this is a good way to do it. Before you go away and glue anything into anything, do it, kind of look at it and then go, is this going to work? Stand back from it as well. I always think standing back is the most important thing you can do. Stand back, have a look and go, right, is it going to look? I'm going to pick the sort of greenier, the yellowier and the green, like, so these ones, the yellowier ones, I'm only going to put a few on the glass, but I'm going to pick ones, like, there's some that just won't go, and I want to kind of keep, or the darker browny ones, they'll go fab, but some of them, like these ones, they're not going to go with a piece. So I need to do that first. But these are the I'm just going to show you everything at once. These are the handles that I've picked for the piece. These are really nice. I mean, these are this is the thing. I'll get Martin, lovely Martin, behind the camera, to drill me a hole here, because we covered these two holes, but we need a new hole drilled right through this mould here so that can sit on the mould. I'm not sure whether I'll paint them. I just think these are expensive handles compared to what was on the IKEA furniture, and that's that thing about raising the bar. I think it doesn't look like IKEA. I think the only thing that maybe gives it away are the legs, is this part here. Oh, I can show you my new shoes as well. See, I've managed to get these into the frame as well. Every year my daughter buys me new shoes for my birthday. and I love Rocket Dog, so Martin's giving you a close-up of my new shoes because I was quite giddy about them this morning. Anyway, I digress. It's this part here, I think, that possibly gives it away when you look at it. There's not much we can do about that. That's just the join that doesn't have ornate feet or anything. If this was chopped there and it had ornate feet put on it, it would look completely different. So, but as a whole, I'm really happy with it. So I'm just going to open the cupboard up, really, and just kind of tape in the paper. Just tape it in. I'll get to cleaning the rest in a minute because we're going to be lying it down flat. Now, I've cut my paper to general size. So I just have to kind of work it out in my head which way it goes. So I think it's going to go this way. So if you want to use tape to tape something together, don't just use it off the roll. What I do is put it on your jumper and get the tack really off it. Even if it's low tack tape, I still do this because you don't want it ripping your wallpaper. So I'm just roughly going to stick this up here just now. We'll get to the finer points in a minute. It's just so that I can have a look at how it looks from a distance. So I'm probably going to need a couple of pieces of tape. Again, stick it on your jumper. Make sure that it's not too sticky. And I'll just stick this. It might actually just stay down there. No, it's going to bump off. Just stick that like that. And I've got the, whoopsie. I'm going to have to stick a few more pieces on this. I just want a general look. That might be enough for me to stand back and have a look at. I'll just get some more tape. It's not dry fitting it. I'm not trying to measure it. I know that these join together, if I've got them right. No, I think I was right the first time. I think this is where I'm going with this piece. I might not have them the right way up. I just want to look at, from a distance, how this looks. So if it just stays nice like that, that will be enough for me to kind of judge. I'm going to close the doors, right, and look at it as a piece. I'm happy with that. I think it goes with the externals. I think if you add in some yellows of the shelves, I think that all works. I think so. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to just off camera flip it onto its back, and oh, before I do that, I'm just going to give you a close-up on how I mix up the PVA. So I buy my PVA in great big tubs like this. I use it for applying wallpaper. It's not the same as decoupage. Wallpaper's heavy, so you need something to apply it with. And wallpaper paste is not, it in time will start to kind of, it's not right. You need something that when it's on, it's on. So what I do is, I've got some water in here. Can you see the water? I put my PVA now in other countries. This is called PVA glue. It's used for lots of things, sizing walls, all sorts of things. It's kind of buildery trade, but it's creative and art as well. You get it in schools. So I think you call PVA in other countries school glue, but I'm not sure. I think just water down a white sort of glue that you think's going to do the job. I've always done this with PVA and it just works for me. You have to stir it for a wee while so that it's nice and watery. But when you mix it through, you end up with something like this. So this is what we will be applying the wallpaper with when we turn it on its back. Okay? So we've got it lying on its back. Now I've got Martin to take the doors off because it's going to be too awkward. Now when that happened, this part here that when the doors were in you didn't see, so I'm just going to touch that up once I put the wallpaper in as well. Just being transparent. Now wallpaper. It's okay if your piece is the width of a sheet of wallpaper, but if you have to do a match, it's best to do your match, find your match of your two pieces of paper on a big surface like a table or on the ground before you start cutting anything. These are both, my main piece and my match are both have been cut slightly to the piece. My match is a little bit wider, but we'll put our first piece in first and then we'll kind of get a rough idea of the matching piece and where it's going to go. So back to your lovely PVA solution. Now you need to make sure it's all covered. You don't want any air bubbles or anything nasty. So, and when you're painting, you're putting wallpaper on, always come slightly over so that you're not having a piece of wood showing, you know, it matches the wallpaper behind. That's a lot easier. And you're just making sure that you apply it, not too thickly, but you need it to be able to This is a good, because it's a kind of plasticky back, and so it's not going to absorb. But if you're doing it on real wood, you know, we kind of layer it up. It's got this rim here, which we're going to be a wee bit awkward to go around, but we'll just try and fold it. You want to go your length of your paper, and trying to do this quickly. I don't think I've ever shown in any videos me putting wallpaper in the back of something, and it's a really good way. It's quite an economical way of really pimping a back up, or you can put it on the sides of your drawers. If your drawers are loose, only if your drawers are loose. If your drawers are tight, don't put it in the inside, because you won't be able to get your drawers up. No, and it'll be a mess. Ask me how I know that one. So, plenty of your PVA solution, and this will stick it down and stick it down for good. There now. I'm just making sure that I've touched up all the areas. And just give it one last so it kind of smooth out. I'm going to remove my bowl and cue my wallpaper. Now, there's different ways you can do it. You can fit it and cut it with a Stanley knife blade, or you can bring it out and cut it with scissors. You'll see that the PVA is really good. It tends to not leave a lot of wrinkles. Now we're having to fold up in this join here, so we might need to kind of reapply some more glue. Do you see how smooth and flat that's going on without any hassle? None at all. It's a wee bit neat down here at this corner, but I'm not bothered about that. Stick that down in there. I'll just do that to that. And it's got quite good manoeuvre. You can manoeuvre it around at this stage. I'm just putting more glue up on here. And making sure that the more moisture it has in the back, the easier it will fold. So that's that into there like that. Now, the next part is, are you going to get your piece that you've cut? Now, I've cut this way too big, so let me just have a look at where my join is. So this is my join here. So I'm going to kind of do something a little bit dangerous, which is do something a bit like this. Take it, and where I folded it with my fingers, which I think, let's do that again, because you don't want to cut it too short at this stage. That would be horrendous. So I'm thinking about here. So you can be quite rough with it. You're just roughly kind of getting a line that you can cut down. So I'm going to do like this, because you can cut any excess off with a Stanley knife blade. I'm just kind of hacking at pieces at this part. I'm hoping that I haven't hacked it too much. Right, this should be easier to find our join. So there's our join there, pretty much, and there's our join on that side. So we're just repeating the same process this time, because I've got it in at the join. I'm going to do something like this. Folding it properly this time, like that. And making sure that I don't go too crazy at the bottom part. I'm folding it like this, bring it back out again. And this is the for real cut. So the for real cut, really go to town on making sure that your fold is properly folded. It's not going off. You've got it right, because this is where mistakes can happen. Ask me how I know. I am doing this in the hope that you will all get it perfectly. It's easier as well, can I just say, if you turn it over, you can see where you folded it. But I'm not going to go daft. I'm still going to kind of go out of my line, just in case I've made a mistake, because That would just be awful. And at this point in time, you are trying to go relatively straight. Some people can cut such straight lines. I'm reasonably good with scissors, but sometimes I can go a bit wonky. I've just went a bit wonky there. So, let's see now how this fits. As I said, I went slightly over. You can cut that with a Stanley knife blade, but let's just get our match. Yep, I'm pretty happy with that. Pull it over towards you, if you can get a grip, and do this so you're there and thereabouts. Now, because we've kind of messed about with you can just sit this on top of here, it doesn't matter, all it'll do is seal it. We need much more of this in our join here. So make sure that you've got plenty of glue in your join, plenty of glue up in your sides, and you have covered the whole area. Now PVA can act as a sealer as well. You can just run over the whole of this with PVA, which I'm going to do in a minute, and that just seals it all in as well. It's brilliant. I've always had a love affair with PVA glue. It does so many things. And there we have it. Now it's slightly big at this join, which we'll cut with a Stanley knife blade, but I'm not going to cut it right now. I'm going to wait till it dries a little bit before I do that, only because, and you can see, I want to push it up slightly. It's still malleable enough to move. And then what I would do is get your PVA and run it down that join. Run it down the join that you've just made. Same at the top. Push it right into the corners. And we'll get that little edge in a minute, and then just go over the whole top. This will just seal the back. It just gives it a little bit of extra protection. You might, when you start moistening up the front, get a few wrinkles, but if it's a good quality paper, you shouldn't. With a thinner paper, like I wouldn't be advocating that you put decoupage paper on with PVA. PVA is too heavy and too thick for decoupage paper. Decoupage paper needs something really thin, like lacquer. My decoupage paper, how I apply it, is with lacquer. So I'm just going to go on. I'm going to paint all of this in here, seal it all off, and we'll get the doors back on. I'm going to touch up these little boo-boos around the edges so that even I know if somebody ever takes the door off this piece that they're going to get a perfect, it's going to look nice underneath, and it's not going to look like I didn't bother. I notice here I've got a little bit to touch up too, so there we go then. Okay, so we've turned it back up the right way. I've put the shelves in it. Now, I took one of the shelves out of it because this was originally a video cabinet. Nobody has videos anymore. So you want to make it look less like it was previously. So by removing one of those shelves and spacing them out differently, you get a completely different look. It's just another wee tip of how to kind of change things up a little bit. It certainly doesn't look like IKEA now. Cottagecore, eat your heart out. It's just looking, I just love it so far. So I'm now going to put some transfers on it. Now, my interest in movement is going to come from here and here. I'm not going up it and down it. I'm not putting, so the interest is coming down this way and this way. This is what I'm going to do, and that'll give it a little bit more zhuzh with the florals and everything underneath. So let's get on and do this. So which ones am I going to pick? I'm just going to rip them off individually. I'll be putting them back in the plastic, the ones I don't use. I just want to have a good, I definitely think that this one here is going to come down this one here. So let's cut it out and see where we're at. I'll get my glasses on, see what we're doing. So I think this might be a wee bit bigger than what we're looking, but we can have it going onto the wood as well, which will look good. Those are not parts of that, they're all other parts. So, since this one's got roots, we really want this one to come from the bottom. I'm not sure, I'm just going to cut these words out because I will put them back in, but maybe not. So, I don't want them there to begin with. Then I can decide what I want to do as opposed to it being done for me. So just cut around that. I'm just going to try and cut as much of this off as I can so that I've got an idea for sizing. So I think I'm going to have this coming right from this corner across here like this. Or will I cut it down there and make these come up more straight? Yeah, hang on a minute while I just hack this apart. So I'm going to do something like, I'm just going to cut these off just now. Yeah, doesn't matter that there's a little bit of greeny running through that, I'm not bothered because I want this to go this way. So let's apply this one first and we'll see where we're going with the rest. So I've done a lot of videos with transfers. They're really easy to use. You peel off the white backing. They're very sticky when you peel off the white backing, so be really careful where you're holding it, especially if you've cut it up, that you're not putting your fingers on the sticky part. You adhere it onto your surface. Now, to be honest with you, sticking a transfer onto glass is so simple, but be careful. Don't kind of sit it down once you get your position in it. If it touches the glass, it'll stick. So try and kind of just be quite bold or think about it, but from a distance when you go to apply it. You get a little transfer stick. These transfer sticks are awesome. What I tend to do first is I rub over the whole thing. I rub it all on like that. So that's just my initial kind of, I know it's down on it now. I want to go around this edge. It's always good if you've got an edge because it kind of opens it up a bit. So I'm going to transfer this onto here, starting with this edge here. So I'm doing that, and there's a little bit of root that I don't want to lose. So let's get it stuck on here before we go any further. Yeah, I think we're good there. Now I'm coming up this corner. Now a lot of people I've seen cut transfers to go around corners and all sorts of nonsense, and there seems to be like so much maths involved, or what we're doing and what we're not doing. We're not doing any of that. We're just applying a transfer. We're just having fun. It shouldn't be difficult. It should be fun. Well, everything you do when it comes to your furniture should be fun. Now, I've lost a little bit there. Let's just make sure I rub that there. Let's see where we're going down here. The glass part I'm not worried about because, as I said, it really sticks really well to glass. You should, oh, lost a wee leaf there. Just, if you kind of, a tip with transfers is what I do, if you can get a little bit of, just a tiny little bit of give, like a little, kind of make a little loop like this. Make sure that one there's stuck down. If you get a wee loop, you can make that loop go all the way up your glass like that. Your loop will kind of like put your transfer on for you. It's another way of kind of doing it. There's some bits here that are being a little bit stubborn. So you just rub and rub and rub and rub and rub and rub until you've rubbed it all off, and you can tell when you've rubbed it off because it goes clear on your side. You know it's stuck down. Whoop. Don't do what I've just done and shift it because I'm missing a couple of bits of leaves there. And I'm missing a little bit here at the top. Just want to pop that back on. If you make a mistake like I've just done, just sit it back down and stick it on the top. It's fine. Blind man running fast, never going to see. Now, you've got that on there. Now, don't use the black check side. That'll rub onto your glass. Use this side, the matte side, and just get a small part of it. Try and make it not too sharp, like that. And then you're just putting it over the top, and you're just burnishing it onto your glass. That's all you're doing. Making sure that it's on it. The thing about glass is you don't want to start smearing it around with your fingers. So just burnish it down really well onto your glass. Take a little bit of time to do this when it's glass. It's different to doing it on wood. I lost it. I made a wee boo-boo there. I'll just get rid of my nail just now before it's stuck down. Now on this edge down here, you want to really push into that edge where it's going onto the wood. Make sure it's all good on there. So that's our first transfer on. Now we had our other pieces. I'm not going to show you me doing every single part of this, but you know what I'm doing. I've lost my leaves now. I'll cut them all. Ah ha ha. Now I like that, but I think I want something a wee bit more like, I want to kind of continue it if I can. But I have to put that into there like that. How about I bring it up onto here and I find something for there. Yeah, I'm going to put this up onto the wood here, this part. So I don't have stalks down here, but I have kind of one of them. So I'm just going to run with that one there and just kind of join that up. And I'm not going to worry about that wee gap too much. So I'm going to stick that down on there and get my positioning. So get your wee tool and just go for it again. And that's all it is about transfers. There's no voodoo-ness, there's no secret. They're so easy to use. Anyone can use them. That's it. So I'm going to go on. I'm going to build up a little bit more here, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this top part. Okay, so I'm focusing in this area up here now, and I want this stem to come right up into that corner. Now this is going to be slightly tricky because it's a larger piece, but what I would do is I would kind of make sure you've got your bend up here first before you do anything else. So bend that down in here and then use your stick to get rid of any bumps. So we are going to focus on pushing that down in there like that, and that up into there and that into the corner first before you do anything. So you know this is all adhered, and this is the stuff that's going up onto the wood. Now I'm going to focus first of all on getting this stem right up. Now, this is kind of awkward, but you know, just take your time. You're not in any rush. We can all be chilled. Because I really want to just be able to just separate this part out. Right, so the next part we're going to be working is we're going to shove this into the corner here and then bend that over the edge like that and start rubbing down here to get these ones on. Then there's another little lip, and we're going to be focusing on the next lip, which is here, and then we're going to be folding that over here like that. Just go slow and keep folding and making sure that it all goes into all of the edges. And then, because we're doing all the loose parts first before we get onto the main transfer, it's on glass, it's not going anywhere. Let's get these parts down first. There's a little bit there that didn't come off, so that's that part all adhered. Now we need to move on to here. Same thing, fold into your corner. Now I've got to go all the way down here and didn't notice that. So let's start with this. It always comes out off the transfer paper easier when you're doing a corner, so that works to your kind of advantage. Now onto here, making sure it goes onto the wood. Now into this little fold. Now fold that over like that, and then go and get that bit there done. Doesn't matter if it's going onto that edge, we can cut that with a Stanley blade or your nail, whatever you have to hand. Just want to make sure that you know that it's all the loose parts you do first. If you start doing this part and that part won't join, they'll move and it'll look a little bit wrong. And again, ask me how I know. It's better to do it this way. This is the way I think is the best way to do it. So we've got that part there now disconnected to it's loose. We know that that part's loose, and we know that this part's loose. Let's just check down here. We lost a little bit of our top of our leaf there. And we know that part there is done. So all the loose parts are done now. So now we can run along here and just start working on our transfer. Whoop. So I'm going to go on and I'm just going to scratch this on. I'm going to just burnish this onto here. You don't need to see all these parts. It's just me putting it on now. There's a little lip up here that I didn't notice with some green, so we're just going to catch that there so we don't miss that detail. These are the things that matter when people are looking at your furniture. All the little joins, how did it work? You know, you don't want to just stop it and start in. So I'm going to just go on and do this now. So I'm just kind of making this up now as I go along. I wanted a little bit more interest coming from up here, so I'm just putting this lovely sort of purpley flower, and I'm not bothered that it's not particularly going anywhere, it doesn't matter. Right, okay, so that's there. Now, I've got another one of these little purpley flowers which I've cut a bit of the stem off, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a minute, and I'm going to bring this out from here like that. That just gives it a little bit more, a wee bit more movement. I wanted this part to come down further down than the part down the bottom coming up, if you know what I mean. So again, we're just the same process. And I'm just going to use that to burnish that on. Now, when I sell pieces like this, sometimes it depends. Sometimes I've gone over this really, really neatly with a lacquer, but most of the time I sell it as it is. It's, you know, if you scrape it, it's going to come off, but if you dust it down with a white cloth, a dry cloth, and I think customers are aware of this, that this is, you know, it's not always going to be on there if you're using harsh chemicals and things like that. So, you know, you can do it both ways. I sometimes have done it. I've sometimes gone over it with very lightly with Mod Podge just in case, but in general this is how I do it. Now I just want to show you something right down the bottom. This was a part of the leaf of that last purple flower. Now when I have something like this, there's a bit missing there and I don't like it. So what I do is I just find another part. So let's go with this part here. I just cut it and I just piece it over it like that. Well, let's get it straight for a start off, like that, so that nobody ever knows that that's not there. And I just, you know, that's how I do it. It's just little parts. If I wanted to, I could put this little part in here as well and make that leaf go there too. It's just the little finer parts that make, you know, that make the piece. I'm a bit bish bosh, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to things like this. I like things like this to be just right. So I'm just going to burnish this little part in here, and that just saves that tiny little part of the leaf that was missing, and you can't tell. So I'm going to just get Martin to give you a wee look at this. Now I want you to think about this objectively. Does this look like an IKEA cabinet? It doesn't. So the next thing, I've got my brush here, is I am going to lacquer this because it was chalk paint, remember, it's not self-sealing. I'm going to lacquer all the wood, self-sealing paint inside on the shelves, so we're okay there. The back's been done with PVA, so we know that's sealed. So I'm just going to do the sides, the top and this, because what I want to do once it's dry is, I think because there's white there, I've introduced white here, I think it's lacking a little bit of white. So I'm going to lacquer it all first, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just run some white wax in some of the joins here and there, just to bring it up, just to kind of the white there and the white there, and to give the outside just a little bit of a lift. So I'm going to go on, lacquer it, and then we'll get to that. Okay, so Martin's drilled through the moulds and put the handles on, and these handles really work with the piece. I nearly changed handles halfway through, but it was Martin that convinced me to stick with these ones. These are nice. So now all we're going to do is put a little bit of white onto the piece, just because there's some white in the background, white on these flowers, and just to kind of tie it together. Not loads of it, just little bits. So instead of going at the edges and all dark, we're sort of kind of highlighting. Now it has been it's been lacquered. Now you can put wax over lacquer, you just can't do it the other way around unless it's properly cured, and then you can go back over it if you want, if that's your shtick. So I'm just kind of picking out some parts, just here and there, kind of giving it a little bit of something. Don't mind if it's heavier in some areas. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just rub it and try and get it into, and then just try and get as much of that off as I can. Oh, a fly. Around there. Just rub that. Maybe some down a bit, quite a lot down that edge there. And maybe some up in here. Sorry, Martin, I'm dotting about. He has to follow me with the camera, so it's a little bit, I'm going to be going down this way. Some at the bottom. So as you can see, I'm not really, you know, just being kind of random, just adding some white in where I feel it might want it. I quite like it when it comes up both doors like that. Bit on the side. And kind of in this part here. White wax is optional. This is an optional thing. It's just I wanted to do it. So I'm just going to keep on going round about the piece. Now, depending on what wallpaper you decide or paper you're going to have on the back, you might not want white wax. You might want a little bit of drama, and you might have pictures in different colours, and you might want to add dark wax. But either way, you know, I'm just kind of like, with no rhyme, sort of kind of real rhyme or reason, I'm just kind of picking out some parts. It's just to give it, just to tie. I wanted to kind of make it look like it was kind of like, you know, like these were a little bit rusty and it was kind of trailing down here like that. I think that's probably enough. So I'm just going to touch up a little bit at the sides. I'll stage it out and we're done. Okay, so we're finished. So let's just talk through what we did today. So it was an IKEA piece. IKEA needs a lot of upgrading. It was quite solid. There was nothing wrong with it. Just needed a lot of paint. So firstly, I cleaned the piece, took the handles off the piece, and it was then scuff sanded because it was quite slick, the surface, and it was going to be painted with chalk paint, so I wasn't too worried. I used a blend of different chalk paints in a sort of kind of mossy hedgerow kind of feel to it. I then showed you how to apply wallpaper inside furniture. Remember to match it up on a flat surface first, and if you're not quite sure which part, get a pencil and write A and B and an arrow so you know which way you're going to apply it when you go to put it in. I should have told you that at the time. Then I painted the shells off camera just to match the wallpaper, and you can pick any kind of wallpaper. It doesn't need to be these colours. Take your inspiration from your wallpaper and then make it happen in the external. So then I used the Fronds transfer from IOD. It's a retired transfer. You can still get it in the UK. I'm not sure about other places, but you could use any transfer if you wanted to have some movement, or you could stamp onto the glass and you could paint it. The variations are so many. It was sealed, white waxed. I also put some moulds on just to give it a little bit of interest, and Martin drilled through my moulds right through the wood and put my handles on, and my handles are really cute as well. That's it really. So today you've seen how to kind of upgrade a piece of IKEA furniture into a cottagecore beauty. I mean, I would put this in my house. By removing one of the shelves, so it doesn't look like a video cabinet anymore. You could put crockery in it. You could have it in your hallway. It would even be lovely in a bathroom. So that's it for today. I've been Lel from Made by Marley. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and give us a like, give us a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and can I just say again, thank you for all the wonderful comments. They really are amazing. Everybody I've just keep reading more and more comments, and they are lovely, and I'm glad that you're enjoying what I do. So I'll see you again another day. Thank you.